You're watching ChillyBoy Productions. I'm Larry, ChillyBoy Chillson, and this is my review for The Flash. Now, before we get into this review, make sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button down below so that you can chill with me on each and every one of my latest videos. The Flash is a 2023 comic book adaptation action film directed by Andy Muschietti. Worlds collide when the Flash uses his superpowers to travel back in time to alter events of his past. However, when his changes inadvertently change his future, he becomes trapped in a reality in which General Zod has returned to once again destroy planet Earth. When he has no other heroes to turn to, Barry must confide in himself in attempts to coax a very different Batman than he's used to out of retirement to rescue a Kryptonian, though not quite the one he was expecting, in hopes to save this world and avoid collapsing the multiverse. The film stars Ezra Miller, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Kiersey Clemens, Michael Shannon, and Sasha Calle. Okay, so The Flash has been in development for such a long time that I think we were all ready for it to finally just release already. After a multitude of delays, a global pandemic, and then a new acquisition of WB, The Flash kind of felt like more of a duty rather than an event at this point for me personally. With all the news about us moving on from these old Justice League characters, getting out of the DCEU, starting afresh, a movie like The Flash that is heavily rooted in the past, the DCEU that was already established and set up, felt somewhat null and void at this point. Plus, obviously, the star of the film has been involved in quite the amount of controversies, further pushing this film down into the muck. But that first trailer particularly looked sick, and I have to say, I was most excited for my Batman to be back on the big screen. That's right, I was showing up and showing out for Michael Keaton. Let's just keep it 100. But ultimately, The Flash left me just disappointed. Oh, what could have been with the Flashpoint storyline. And this mess is what we were left with. Hmm. So, let's go ahead and talk about the positives first. Well, I gotta give it to my man. Maybe I'm biased, who cares? But Michael Keaton stole the whole show for me. Everything to do with Michael Keaton was amazing. He was amazing in this role. Getting to see him suit back up, it seemed like Michael Keaton was there to have some fun and do the damn thing as his version of Batman. And I love the kind of retro feel of his Batman too. Although we're not literally going back in time to the late 80s and early 90s, the way he operates, he's a retired Batman. He hasn't been upgrading his equipment necessarily. And it was so fun to see him in action. Honestly, the stuff with Ben Affleck in action was amazing as well. And I have to say, it really made me wish Andy Muschietti had been handed a Batman film instead of a Flash film to direct. Because the way he directed the Batman sequences was so amazing. It was so much fun, clean, cool, everything you want from legit Batman action. And honestly, so much better than like all the rest of the action in the film. So everything to do with all of the Batmans, top tier. I also thought Sasha Calle looked amazing as Supergirl, obviously, and I liked her story, but she certainly was a shining light in this film. And of course, the multiverse is a lot of fun to explore, to be a part of. There are a ton of Easter eggs and little cameos. You have to keep your eyes peeled for a lot of these things, but they're there as we explore and run and dash through these different timelines or poke our heads into different types of universes. And it's just a lot of fun. My audience and myself audibly laughed and cheered at several of these moments. It's impossible not to let your inner geek get the best of you as you experience all these things you love, all these things that could be and could have been come to the screen once more. I also think everything that had to do with the emotional core of the film actually worked. Barry Allen worked best here when he is much more introspective. His final hurdle to overcome in the film was done very, very well. And I think everything to do with him and his family and his reasoning was handled well. I just wish we got more of that type of introspective and sincerity. Because unfortunately, the rest of The Flash was a miss for me. First of all, the visual effects are really bad. Yeah, this is right up there with most of Marvel's recent questionable visual effects work. Andy Muschietti does this thing where the two different Barry Allens have two different color palettes to kind of distinguish them somewhat. And our Barry Allen, right from the get go, has an orangey red palette, which we've seen before. And it is so ugly. The first time we see the Flash run in this film is shocking in how poor it looks. I know y'all tried to dog on that Eternal scene where Makari is taking it to Icarus. I don't want to hear it because that looked a million times better than any of the running scenes in this film. There are some moments that look okay, but wow, once we get to the like Flash Coliseum of the multiverses, it looks horrible. There is sequences popping in and out of universes, more or less, that look horrible. Really, the film looks very bad. I'm sorry to say. I'll say that most of the non-Flash stuff in the final set piece looked okay. Everything to do with Batman looked cool and actually looked great. Maybe that's because all of his stuff is in black, so it's easier. I'm not sure. And then the humor. Once again, a big complaint many people have with the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been the humor throughout its entirety of existence, to be honest, but particularly recently, a lot of humor, blah, blah, blah. Well, The Flash kind of feels like a Marvel film in many ways. It literally starts on a joke and it ends on a sight gag joke, and it throws in jokes constantly throughout. For me, that's not that big of a problem, to be honest, particularly with like a fun kind of character here. The problem lies in the fact that I just didn't find most of it funny. I really found Barry Allen to be an irritating character, and we times him by two. The new one specifically was very irritating to me when he's yelling and hollering, screaming. It just was, I didn't like his character. It felt very much like one of those side heroes, like the minions, that you're like, okay, you work okay in small little doses, but having to spend the entirety of this film with you, no. The story is pretty nonsensical. The script isn't great. They try this one sequence of doing their own version of like the Quicksilver scenes in the X-Men films, nowhere near the level that those are executed at, unfortunately. Yeah, this is a lot closer to something like It Chapter 2 than It when it comes to Muschietti and his directing. It's over the top, over bloated, and not all that appealing. It's also too long. There's a stretch, particularly through the middle of this film, where I was like, oh my gosh, we are really dragging this sucker out. It kicks back up once we meet some of these new heroes and get into action with them, but it's definitely too long. So overall, The Flash has those cool moments. As a nerd, as a geek, you have to have some amount of fun with a film like The Flash. I mean, come on. So there's stuff in here that I really had fun with and I really enjoyed. Unfortunately, it's just buried under an excess of mess and noise. It takes too much work to get to the root sincerity of it all. And along the way, it just kind of lost me. So if you're looking for one final go round with the DC characters you've loved, you're going to see The Flash anyway. And you might as well see it on a big screen. Maybe see it in 3D if they're offering it. Maybe those like darkened 3D glasses will buffer out those visuals a little bit. Oh no. Otherwise, if you have superhero fatigue, and honestly, I'd say more so if you have like Marvel fatigue, you might want to skip this one. This feels much more in line with middling Marvel outings than it does even the DC blech outings. But you certainly can't criticize this DC film for being too dark and dreary and serious, though. So there's that. Well, that is my review for The Flash. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below and subscribe to the channel so that you are always up to date on all of my latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you hyped to check out The Flash? Have you already seen it? Let me know all of your thoughts either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your continued support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.